What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you a thick podcast today, Dave. Girthy podcast, if you will.
Yeah, super thick, bro. Super thick.
Yeah,
The content mine's overflowing with bounty this week.
yeah, and if you're tuning in, I should say my name is Pat Sheehan, and that's my co-host Dave Martinson that you just heard, and we're bringing you your weekly updates in the world of music, TV, and movies. And Dave, we kind of have to start with a very familiar topic on this podcast, which is a speculated Kanye West album. So, yesterday afternoon, I was perusing Twitter and I saw Kanye was trending, which is always of interest to me. Anyone that listens to the podcast knows that we're both pretty big Kanye fans. And respectfully, Justin LeBoy, who hosts the Respectfully Justin podcast, um,
Revolt TV.
tweeted that Kanye played his new album for me and Katie Trey 5, Kevin Durant, last night in Vegas. Man, listen, the production is light years ahead of its time, and the bars sound like he's broke and hungry trying to get signed again. Any artists who plan on dropping soon should just push it back. Hashtag respectfully. And with the emoji, like blowing air out of the nose.
Right.
And I read that and I'm like, fat chance. Like I don't believe we're gonna be getting a Kanye album soon, but it sounds like it might be happening. What's the update you got?
Right. So since that came out, which I think most people were definitely taking with a grain of salt, we have official announcement from Live Nation that there is a Donda listening event at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta this Thursday, the 22nd. Notable for many reasons, it's an official event reminiscent of the Yeezy Season 3 / Life of Pablo
Yeah.
listening event at Madison Square Garden in 2016. And I guess also similar to the Wyoming listening sessions for Ye and those albums, although that was more or less just media listening. And that definitely gives it some credibility because going in before that, I was like, all right, well, Revolt TV said something cool. Um, if he actually, I'm sure Kanye played him the music. I'm not doubting that, but there's no way if Kanye actually played him music in confidence, he'd be like, "Yo, that shit sucked." Obviously he's protecting his access, so it's really a worthless take, if you ask
Right.
me. Also, Kevin Durant's opinion on it probably doesn't matter too much. He is publicly said that his favorite Jay-Z album is American Gangster, which is a take. So again, you take what you have. But it seems like it's public. And more than anything else, I'm just struck with the fact that Donda is still the name of the album because
Mm-hmm.
Donda is over a year old and there's just a litany of lost Kanye albums at this point. Good Ass Job, So Help Me God, Yandi, and Donda was the latest. And now
Mm-hmm.
Donda may be, in fact, be unearthed. I'm sure there's still many iterations of Donda, and this is not what it was once at one time. But something's happening. There seems to be something real, and usually you don't actually have this much to latch onto when there's like a false flag when it comes to a new Kanye project, right? So I guess the hopes are up.
Yeah, I think the one thing that gives me a lot of optimism for this album, and I hate to say this, but he has had some turmoil in his personal life recently around a relationship, and that seemed to be something that has sparked some of his best work in the past. Obviously, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, with the relationship with Amber Rose and all the drama around that. Just seems like maybe we're gonna get an inspired or at least a return to form for Kanye is my hope. But I mean, what are your expectations of any Kanye project at this point? Jesus is King, obviously, I think the least exciting album that he's ever put out, and Kids See Ghosts we really liked. Ye was kind of middling. So where are you at?
Yeah, and well, I also just harken back to his brand new feature verse on the second posthumous album from Pop Smoke. Notably, not a return to form for Kanye
No.
as the rapper. Pretty clearly, no room for debate. And I think that's just what it is, right? Like Kanye hasn't felt like he's totally focused in on his bars, and when he's had a guest spot, they've just kind of been like stream of conscience. There's filler bars, like everything is just unfinished, And I don't know, maybe if he's not married to Kim K, he has more time. I don't want to blame her for anything at all. Like, I don't think that's
No,
fair. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. He's seeing his kids less. Maybe I don't know if that's a positive in general. Um,
right.
but maybe his circumstances are at least slightly changed, and he can be more professional musician first, and have less celebrity obligations. I don't really know. Um, yeah, I man, like you think of, and like that, there's always just the carrot, right? Like there's moments on Jesus King,
Mhm.
there's moments on Yay. Obviously, the verse on Reborn on Kids See Ghosts is widely lauded. It's not like he's washed. He's just so inconsistent lately that just getting consistency would feel so awesome.
Yeah. I'm hoping that this is um, I'm hoping that this is at least on like the level of Life of Pablo, which I
Oh,
think you look back and
imagine that'd be
yeah,
sick.
yeah, 5 years ago we were like, you can see some of the seams
Mhm.
coming apart for Kanye, and then you look
I'm a
back and
fixed
you're like, oh man,
wolves.
yeah,
We were so young.
Life of Pablo is just completely, I think it's aged really well in retrospect. So,
Yeah.
um, anyways, we're gonna keep you updated with Kanye. This all could blow up, and we're not gonna hear anything for months.
Mm.
We don't know, but I also want to say this seems pretty imminent. Seems like we might be getting an album, and the fact that we might get a Kanye album before a Drake album this year is
Oh,
unbelievable to me.
that is
So,
insane. Actually, come to think of it, wow,
yeah,
did
I
not
mean,
consider that.
Certified Lover Boy has been something we've been anticipating for months now. So the fact kind of just coming out of nowhere, it's just like, okay.
I made this in a
Um,
week. Take it.
yeah, exactly. But we're going to shift gears onto another surprise drop um, this past week. Yves Tumor, an artist that's been increasing in terms of my fascination over the last year. And if you anyone that's tuned into the podcast, listen to our end of year best of music last year, I threw one of his songs onto my top 10. Off Heaven to a Tortured Mind, an album that came out last year that
Mhm.
garnered a lot of acclaim, a lot of attention, and rightfully so. I mean, I think especially the first half of that album is just hit after hit after hit. And Use Tumor, I think critically has had a lot of attention since even his first album back in 2015. So when Asymptotical World, the EP, dropped this past Thursday, I was like, oh, Yves Tumor, let's tune in. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what he's cooking up. And what I really find fascinating about Yves Tumor is he really seems to kind of mesh together some aspects of like hip hop with like pure rock, which we don't really hear a lot now. And he seems to also have this personality of like a true like throwback kind of rock star to me. You watch some of the videos, you listen to some of the songs and the content, you're like, oh, this feels like kind of a throwback type of dude. And then this EP didn't really hit for me, Dave.
Hmm.
Maybe we'll get into it, but just like what were you expecting going in here? Where were you at?
Yeah, well, I only came on him last year, like a lot of people. You know, listen to Kerosene, obviously the big highlight there, and definitely really talented, really interesting, like you said, doing lots of kind of rock sounds, but like really, like I think genuinely bringing like psychedelic rock to the forefront while bringing in all
Mhm.
kinds of other stuff. It's just kind of a unique blend to hear, and a lot of the songs do go hard, and like there's also I think quite rich lyrics in songs, especially like a song like Kerosene, but they're not like soft, like laid back songs by any means. And listen to this EP, definitely surprised, didn't expect that out on Warp Records. And I was definitely struck with that lead single, Jackie, which I think
Mhm.
just, goes really hard, and the drums are awesome on that. In doing research, I noticed that this song was co-written by Chris Griotti, who has notably worked with Youngblood and Poppy, two other people that have been bringing rock ideas to the front, to the mainstream. So, bit of an interesting collaborator because it definitely feels coming into this EP, it felt like he used Tumor just kind of doing his own thing to beat of his own drum. But if he's got some people that have a lot of pop experience for this kind of thing. Working with him too, I think that really bodes well for his future. And Jackie, the vocal performance reminded me a lot of Trippie Redd of all people, which he's
Hmm.
someone who likes to put himself on a pedestal as the rock star, even though he's uh, a melodic rapper. And the fact that Yves Tumor reminded me of Trippie was just funny to me because I definitely think of Yves in a much higher esteem, but
Sure.
that's what I heard, at least vocally. Then you have like these, really sick drums. So
Yeah.
I like Jackie a lot.
Yeah. Jackie, I think, is the clear standout here. And then I think the other track that probably was my favorite was Secrecy is incredibly important to the both of them. Just kind of like the guitars and like the drums, the way that they kind of just like blend together and whirl around in that really stands out as like the energy I think I was expecting from an Used Tumor drop. But then a couple of the tracks, I was saying I was a little disappointed with it. A couple of the tracks felt a little bit more toned down, I think, and maybe not in a way I found super interesting. Huck is kind of like a shoegazy type feel to it, right? And while I think certainly we've checked out a couple of shoegaze type albums, and you can. I'm trying to think of who they might have been the last couple of years, but I think like Years and Years maybe is who I'm like thinking of, something like
Oh,
that.
sure. The
But
second one, yeah.
yeah, but for Used to, that felt just a little bit unexpected, not necessarily bad, but I think just not what I was hoping for. Um, but I think for this being an EP, a surprise EP, this just leads me to feel like he's got a lot of inspiration right now. He's got a lot of uh, work going on, and I'm hoping that this leads to something bigger, hopefully by the end of the year or maybe early next year for him. Because I'd like to see him out there touring again. I'd like to catch him in concert if possible.
Yeah,
So,
he has a
any
tour
other?
coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
does he? Good.
Mhm.
Any other standouts for you?
Um, I did, Jackie was the only one that really stuck in my mind, but he does jump around a lot on a short EP, and I think that
Hmm.
just speaks to what he's been doing of late, just bringing all kinds of stuff in. And yeah, sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's not the energy you're expecting, but it's definitely not boring.
No, for sure not. Highly recommend just checking it out, and also obviously checking out some of his past work. But we're gonna move forward to another artist who I think it's very hard to pin down your expectations for them at this point. That's Willow Smith. Last time we talked about Willow Smith was 2019, and I'm trying to remember what was our take on Willow. I think we were pretty lackluster on it, right?
Yeah, I believe she's done a lot of music lately, and it's kind of been jumping around a lot. I believe that was the jazz-ish album, blues.
Hmm.
Definitely not what this new one is, anyway. And it was like I think you could tell she was coming into her own as like a real artist, as a relative adult, considering she
Hmm.
has been known as a musician in one form or the other for over 10 years at this point. With My Hair was 2011. It's been a long time for her. She's only 20 now, I think it is, right? Or
I
22,
think so.
whatever it is. She's young, 20, I think. And I think that was kind of my takeaway, right? Like she didn't seem as advanced as Jaden in terms of her career, but that seems to have quickly changed. You look on
Mhm.
Spotify, the monthly listeners are there. She is racking up streams at this point, and I'm not sure exactly when the pivot to pop punk was happening, but it's happened in full, aesthetic wise and music wise, following the footsteps of Machine Gun Kelly and Olivia Rodrigo. Something it's a very mainstream subgenre in pop for famous people right now. And whether it's something Willow's really into or not from her youth, who can I like what how can I speak to that? But on one hand, like I don't even know, does the authenticity matter to you? Because like she has jumped around a lot, but also she's so young that like if she is gonna try to find her voice, find her sound, it's not it doesn't come off it doesn't come across to me as like trend chasing as much as Machine Gun Kelly's pivot did, because MGK was just much older and
Mhm.
more seasoned in his career. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, how'd you feel about this just change?
Totally shocked, honestly. Like I when I started playing the album, I was put it on as I was doing other stuff, and I immediately checked my phone. I was like, I think I put the wrong album on, because it just was not at all what I was expecting from her. I mean, this is the artist who blew up with "I Whip My Hair Back and Forth," and like you
Mhm.
said, her last album we reviewed was, I think, a little bit more in the same lane as someone like Ari Lennox or something like that. And then this was a totally different energy. And I think I kind of chalked this up to Willow being maybe one of the most like Gen Z artists out there right now. Cause I think she really just does not want to be pinned down to any one genre or sound. I think, like you said, she's kind of still exploring her artistry. And knowing her and Jaden and just kind of like the third eye stuff that's so associated with them, I'm really not surprised to see a switch up like this because I think they're always kind of like trying to subvert what you expect from them. So while I was surprised when I first listened, I was also pretty taken by how good I thought this album sounded. You have Tyler Cole collaborating with her and obviously producing most of this again. We have Travis Barker on a couple tracks. You have Tierra Whack showing up. Avril Lavigne. I mean,
You're not doing pop punk if you're not bringing Avril back. We know the Avril comeback is well underway at this point.
and I thought that song was pretty good. Not gonna lie, and Avril Lavigne sounded pretty good. So, what was your take? Did you enjoy this?
Uh, yeah, yeah, I did. I don't know if I was necessarily wowed by anything, but like Olivia Rodrigo's "Good for You," carbon copy of Paramore's "Misery Business," but it still kind of strikes you as a song, even if it's more or less a carbon copy, a clone, if you will. Willow almost, I think, is just being more I don't want to say generic, but more less specific in her influence of with this pop punk, right?
Mhm.
And I think her performance is really good. A song like that, like what I think is the second single, "Transparent Soul" with Travis Barker, like the way she belts out that hook, the transparency, like it's convincing, you know. Um, Lipstick, another song I thought she was really good on,
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean, it's pretty tight, you know, sub 30 minutes. Definitely her most interesting album to date. I'd say that's quite obvious.
Yeah, I agree on the vocal performance on Lipstick. That like like it really just grabs you. It's such a impressive, I think, vocal um, just like display. But w- I wanted to ask you because we haven't heard a lot from Tierra Whack recently. How did you feel about that verse that she does at the end of Extra?
I like that song a lot. It definitely was like a jolt of energy towards the end of the
Yeah,
album.
for
Just
sure.
I want a new Tierra Whack project, man. She's been popping up in guest spots kind of consistently, but we haven't had anything from her since Whack World. It's been a while.
Yeah, I just loved hearing her, and I feel like there's got to be something around the corner from her. Um, but overall, I thought everything on this worked. I don't know if any of it, like you said, was like blow me away good, but sometimes with Travis Barker too, you see him as like featuring Travis Barker. He's just giving his like a drum solo or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but still, I thought like the features worked pretty well, and I'm interested just to see where she goes next. I feel like she made a quality album. Maybe she'll continue in this lane, or maybe the next one will be something completely different. Who
Right.
knows? But I
I,
appreciate that about Willow.
yeah, I agree. In terms of Travis Barker features, I feel like they're just basically a flag that, hey, this was actually a performed percussion and not just a drum kit on the computer. So be happy about it, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. Um, any last thoughts on Willow?
Keep doing your thing, girl. You know, it's cool to see her and Jaden really becoming actual artists, given that they're coming from the silver spoon. No one had high expectations for a while, and they're seeming to earn it. It's nice to see.
Absolutely. Um, Dave, do you feel like John Mayer has earned the success he has? Because man, we're 8 albums in, a couple of compilation albums and extended plays, and
Mhm.
man,
43 years old, many public relationships later.
yeah, many public relationships later. And Sob Rock comes out. The first single, was it like Last Train Home, got a lot of attention when it first
Mm.
dropped because John Mayer's going 80s. Um, and I think there was a lot of hope that this could be a an interesting John Mayer album. We haven't really, I think, gotten anything like blow me away from John Mayer since I don't know. Does the Search for Everything? Did that blow you away? Paradise Valley, Born and Raised. Like, what are we going back to Battle Studies? The last time we were really
You
like blown
got to
away
be
by
going
anything John
back.
Mayer.
You got to be going back. I'm not the biggest John Mayer guy in the first place, but Theory of Everything 2017, we did talk about that. Audio only day, SoundCloud.com/nostalgia pod. Get to scrolling for that. But yeah, that one did not wow me at all. So yeah, you got to go back for the John Mayer
Right.
hits, as it were.
So
Not that I'm a big into them in the first place, but yeah, it's been a while. I think.
it's been over a decade, probably 2009 Battle Studies. You have Half My Heart, Heartbreak Warfare, Who Says, Perfectly Lonely. Like that was probably Edge of Desire. These are, tried and true John Mayer hits. So then he gets a Sob Rock, and I think people were feeling optimistic. And I think after like the first maybe like four songs, this felt pretty one note to me. I didn't find it to be super impressive. Although I do always find his guitar play impressive, and it was an easy listen. I'll say it's something you can put on and enjoy, but it's not something that you're like, John Mayer, I'm gonna tell my kids about this someday. It's kind of like another John Mayer album. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, it's easy to listen to because it's low effort, and John Mayer is someone who, again, not so recently, but has been highly esteemed as an artist for a long time. The I think the lack of ambition on this is what just stands out to me. And it's really funny listening to the press from him. He's like, I'm like, I want people to tell me it's shit. I want people to, I'm not chasing any trend. It's like, actually, bro, you are chasing the biggest trend of all. You're doing 80s pop music right now, bro. Everyone's doing this. This is trend chasing. Like I couldn't help but laugh when I saw that he had said that. Like and like there's no way he came to this on his own. Obviously people told him to do this because it would probably play better, you know? Uh it's just funny to see. And actually the first single from this is New Light from 2018. I don't know why that song had been out so long right after the last album, but either way, Last Train Home I think uh notable to me because of the obviousness of its 80s influence. The kick drum and the synths are just Toto's Africa. Like
Mhm.
it's all you can hear, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds exactly like it to start off with. Um, and I don't find any other songs on this even really that interesting. Like Wild Blue, I guess stands out maybe a little bit because it's like maybe the grooviest track he's got there. Um, Why No Love Me? Like why is that the lyrics? Did I
Yeah,
miss
well,
something there?
there's just some shitty hooks on this, right? Like some really terrible lyricism. Why you know love me till the right one
That's bad.
comes. Uh,
Yeah,
all I
the right
want
one comes bad.
is to be with you. The hooks are just repeating the title of the song 5 times. It's like, bro, I can get this from C tier Atlanta rappers anytime I want. Like I expect a little more advancement than this. And it just feels like it's underwritten. And not that he's like the strongest, ever been the strongest writer, but like I said, it just kind of comes across as low effort. It's just here's John Mayer doing it, chill 80s vibes, and take it, do what you want with it.
Yeah, and I go back to it's still enjoyable. It just because it's like it's easy. It's easy
Yeah,
listening, and I can get with that. I respect John Mayer. I'll throw him on a nice summer night, having a few beers and just relaxing. But this is a great album, I would say. A couple of tracks I did like mentioned Last Train Home. New Light obviously is I think a standout, but it's not new. Wild Blue, like I mentioned. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of any of these other ones. Maybe All I Want Is to Be With You, kind of like that singer songwritery
yeah. Just
John
again ignore
Mayer's.
the hook. That sucks.
Yeah. But overall, whatever. It's John Mayer. It's easy. I
At
don't know.
least he's working.
Yep. And Dave, we're gonna go from soft to softer because we're going to Clairo.
Ooh,
But I think the thing about Clairo that I'll say is this is her thing. You know, she's in. I was almost gonna say she's in that like indie rock girl zone, but I think that's a bit reductive, right? 'Cause she's a bit more Gen Z than probably the
yeah,
peers that we would be talking about in there. You know, she blew up what 2017 with Pretty Girl,
2018, I think. Yeah.
and I think the thing that stood out to people then was, uh, I think a surprisingly catchy and good soft indie song mixed with a music video that felt very Gen Z. You know, I think
Hmm.
if you watch it, it's her just sitting in front of a computer, uh, laptop
Yeah.
camera,
DIY.
making, yeah, it's very lo-fi the video, and
Almost Maggie Rogers esque, right, in terms of the
yeah,
origin story.
yeah, exactly. Uh, we did not review her first album, but this is her second one, Sling, and I think there's some moments on here, but it's long, especially for a Gen Z album. And I found a lot of it to feel a bit redundant and just too meandering for me.
Yeah.
You felt the same?
Yeah, it's. I mean, look at her. Look at her Spotify. Healthy listening total. A lot
Mhm.
of big tracks. Most of them are older from that first album, Immunity, and the debut EP, Diary 001. And songs like you mentioned, Pretty Girl, the blow up song, but also other ones like Flaming Hot Cheetos, Hello, Sophia. It's got some big
Yeah.
tracks. I think you listen to those songs, which have clearly been accepted as her highlights to date, and it's like a really light, breezy vocals, right? It's like really chill indie pop music. Definitely not indie rock. It's just light indie pop stuff. And on the second album, Sling, notably, brought in Jack Antonoff, who notably uh, brought the biggest pop star to the woods last year. And it's actually what he did with Clairo as well. Clairo recorded this in upstate New York in the mountains, and it's
Yeah.
some chill folk stuff. And she managed to get even lighter and softer. I'm kind of surprised. Like,
You didn't think she could do it, but she did. I mean, I think it's still a pretty impressive album for someone who's she's what 23, and this is her second
22.
like
Mhm.
real album.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. You know, songs like Bags or um, Softly. You know, if you're talking about Softly really stands out to me. Actually, those might be off the last album. I'm sorry. Um,
There.
I was thinking more about Blouse,
Yes.
which stood
Lord
out to me.
backing vocals.
Yes. Which if you're gonna get Lord to sing backing vocals, that's quite the sign off.
Mhm.
But Blouse really stands out to me, those backing vocals, but just the way that they harmonize together, I thought was pretty impressive. What are other tracks that stood out to you?
Yeah, I had two that stood out to me just because they kind of changed the energy a little bit for the album because I don't think Clairo's oh, not the strongest vocalist, or at least she doesn't leave like a really like in your face vocal impression anyway. Like I said, it's light, it's laid back. So
Mhm.
a song like Amoeba, the keys, the snare, really noticeable, kind of picks up the track. Later on, Zinnius, that acoustic strumming with those drums, again, kind of just picks up the energy just a little bit because I feel like uh, other tracks on Sling, they can just kind of blend together because vocally it's not a showy performance. So
Mhm.
it's either got to really be your vibe or you might just kind of fade in and out with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about your point about Antonoff and Taylor Swift, and I think also getting Solar Power from Lord as that first single. Antonoff being such a force, especially within the female pop star realm right now, it seems like a lot of his focus is on going softer and blending that with his like usual like 80s rock type trappings of his production.
Hmm.
And it just feels like it's moving pop music into this very like laid back, almost like chill hop direction that is becoming to me a little bit boring. I don't know how you feel about like Antonoff at this point, but if we were talking about this, what, 2 years ago, or was it last year with Norman fucking Rockwell even? Was that
And
2 years ago? I don't
2019.
know. Yeah, I would have told you were lying if you told me that this is the direction it would have gone in. But it really seems like even with his own music, a couple of the singles we've heard, like he's really just going this toned down direction. And I want to see him try to get back to a little bit more of that like green light, like
Mm.
uh just like more upbeat stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess the one thing I would just counter with is perhaps this is just product of the pandemic. Clairo
True.
recorded most of this at that studio, but she was quarantining with her family for most of last year,
Hmm.
right? Taylor quarantining, Lord couldn't leave her home country, quarantining with the rest of us, right? Like I think we need to see a longer stretch of time before like it's like a noted like specific trend, right? And
Hmm.
kind of brings me to my criticisms of Taylor Swift re-recording her material, not because there's anything wrong with that, but just because it's slowing down getting the next new Taylor album, so we actually know what direction Taylor's going in. Because I can't imagine we're getting another folk album after Folklore and Evermore, right? Clairo, she has always been light and slow and chill. So it doesn't surprise me as much getting it from her, right? And I guess
Right.
bringing Jack Antonoff in, especially at this time, a great call, you know?
Oh, for her, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm just hoping it doesn't keep going that direction. Clairo as a like Gen Z type artist. I mean, you mentioned some of the hits on Spotify here. Uh, we're talking like close to 300 million views or plays for Sophia. A couple others over 200, a bunch over 100. I mean, she does pretty good numbers. Going to be interesting to see the space she has carved out for herself in this like uh, music world moving forward, because it seems like she's got a lot of attention. Um, Maybe this is just like a new like Joni Mitchell for her age or something like that.
Yeah, that's who she cites as an influence anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's
Not
the thing too.
surprised.
It's like she doesn't really have a direct peer as much, right? She's a lot younger than Lord, definitely a lot
Mhm.
younger than Taylor. I guess Maggie Rogers is similar to her age, but Maggie Rogers definitely makes more lively music.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure who the direct like comparison even should be at this point. Like she was featured on the Charlie XCX album Charlie from 2019, but
Hmm.
obviously they're very different artists. Like I can't really, I'm not really sure who her direct peer would be.
Sure, it will come to me after we're done recording. So
Right.
I'll make sure to throw that in there or tweet about it if I think of it. But Dave, I think we gotta move off the rock or the soft rock and move on to Pop Smoke. Um, got another posthumous album. We've unfortunately over the course of the podcast talked about quite a few of them. Um, to varying degrees of success. I think obviously Mac Miller Circles was the clear standout of all the posthumous albums we've talked about. And this Pop Smoke album, Faith, I thought was certainly not the worst posthumous album I've ever heard, but it just felt like many of these posthumous albums very bloated with a lot of features because you kind of have to have a lot of features. And it almost just kind of didn't even feel much like a Pop Smoke album at times. Um, but overall, I think there was still some tracks worth talking about. Before we get into those, how were you feeling going into this album and then after listening to it?
Yeah, it definitely was not optimistic for the usual reasons with posthumous albums, right? We're coming off a triumphant first posthumous album for Pop Smoke, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, made
Mhm.
my top 10. An album that, against all odds, was the fifth best selling album of 2021 right now. Third best selling
Mhm.
album of last year, the year it came out, but it's the fifth best selling album of this year, too. And it's only behind one actual new release this year from Olivia Rodrigo. Like, it's insane that the Pop Smoke's Posthumous album was as successful as it was. Spawned tons of TikTok hits, but also just amazing songs that, again, as we've been saying for a while, everyone knows at this point, just showed the kind of wide ranging talent Pop Smoke would have been able to been and the force he would have been if he had lived. Right? What you know about love comes to mind, of course, something special. All these tracks, these bangers, right? And just show how multifaceted he really was. And now to get a second posthumous album pretty quick, right? And you listen to it, and a lot of features. Not that we didn't have a lot of features last year, it was a lot of features. And this just really screams of just kind of creative bankruptcy, man. This is really unethical to me. By all accounts, his mom wanted another album. That's the estate trying to make money, whatever. But the label obviously really formed this. And if Pop Smoke was still alive, how many of these performances, how many of these random hooks and half finished verses would he have even wanted to share with the world? Because none of them
Mhm.
are that good. Like I think Pop still sounds good just because of his sheer talent, right? He just has a bravado, he has a gruffness, he has a charisma as a
Yeah.
performer, and that's still there. But that's kind of all he's bringing on this to me because he's really almost an MC on his own album as he just kind of shuttling through all these features. So I was
Mhm.
really disappointed with it, but again, I wasn't that surprised that this is how it came out.
Yeah. Um, I think the thing that like stood out to me, and the reason we're always cautious with these posthumous albums is almost every track felt different, and I think that points to something that you don't really usually get when an artist obviously is able to put their creative mark over something. At least an artist of Pop Smoke's caliber, right? Because like you go through the track list and uh, Tell the Vision with Kanye and Pusha T feels like a good music Kanye song. Manslaughter feels like a Rick Ross song. You know, it. I think as you have these different artists pop up, give a verse, um, it really just does not feel like it's something that came genuinely from pop. Now, do I think all these songs are necessarily bad? No, I think some of them are all right, and I think it's like it's fun sometimes to hear some of the features. Like like what's cracking with Takeoff. Actually stood out to me as like
Yeah,
one of the better tracks.
definitely.
And I thought Takeoff sounded great, better than anything we got on Culture 3. So it's also kind of nice to see, or even something like Woo Baby with Chris Brown. Obviously they're using the like the Neo song. So tired of love songs or whatever it is, but
Right.
um, like those sorts of things I found fun. Then there's other tracks, man, like Kid Cudi, 8 Ball. Like I hated that track. I thought that
Oh,
was one of the worst ones. Um, I the two with Pusha T, even though it's always fun to hear Pusha pop up. The one with Kanye, Television, and then Top Shot, I thought were both pretty bad. So hit and
yeah.
miss. Any that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Pusha T's there because he's also managed by Pop Smoke's manager, Steven Victor. So kind of label machinations on that one.
Yep.
Looking at the track list, seeing Demeanor with Dua Lipa stood out to me. I was like, oh God, is this a duet's final chapter type
Mhm.
situation? The way Diddy just kind of bastardized the last of the Biggie
Biggie. Yeah.
snippets and demos and all that. Not necessarily. Like, obviously, Dua Levitating took off with DaBaby. She's acquitted herself well with rappers, but that song is really weird to me. Like, I feel like the mix on Pop is off. It's bad, and like it felt really disjointed and kind of cut and pasted. And
Mhm.
listening to some of the other songs, was okay. So I wrote a few of these down. More Time. This is the second track, and What's Cracking, and well, one of the ones with Pusha T. They actually had Pop reciting like lyrics he already had on More Time. He's like, her ass fat, feel like Jello, which is basically just what the hook on Hello from last year is. Ass fat,
Mm.
Jello, on the King of New York
Yep.
mellow. Like, again, this feels like these were demos, Um, what's cracking? He says, run rookie, yeah, he running. Obviously, that's from Welcome to the Party, his first hit.
Yep.
Um, what was it on one of the other songs? He says Big 38 for the weapon again, which is from 44 Bulldog from last year. Like, I just wonder if like this either like, oh well, Pop didn't finish this verse. Let's find something that fixed that we do have. We have no way of knowing if that was actually the verse.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was actually a demo and he had done it in a better way, and that's why we heard that song already last year. So that kind of stuff just kept sticking in my mind as I noticed it. Um, I guess one thing that I did think was funny was on Beat the Speaker. Pop says it's 10K a feature, which obviously is very dated because
Yeah.
Pop smoked today or
Way
last
more.
year. If he was alive, it's way more than 10K. We all know that.
Way more than 10K. Um, yeah, I think for a posthumous album, it's not all bad, but I think like you said, even some of the ethical, moral aspect of should this have even been something that was made is certainly something to consider
Right.
before listening.
Yeah.
Um,
I just wanted to note too. I think my favorite track is probably 30 featuring Busy Banks, just because Busy Banks is a Brooklyn rapper. I don't know if he actually like completely crossed paths with Pop Smoke, but he was definitely like uh, come up in the evolution of Brooklyn drill since everything happened with Pop Smoke. And I thought he absolutely spazzed on that one. That was a really good feature, but also a feature I feel like makes sense. Um, Speaking of these posthumous albums, though, we just got a trailer for the second Juice World posthumous album coming soon. The Party Never Dies. As usual, the caveats apply.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about it maybe. Um, why don't we get off of music though? And what if we talk a little bit about Betty, the very delightful HBO series? I don't know. It's not a mini series, I guess, because it's you know second
No,
season, but it's
not yet renewed for
also
season three. We hope.
a mini season, I guess. Only 6 episodes. It's
Yeah,
kind of funny how quickly, we do the first. We review the first episode. I might fall a couple behind. Then before I know, I'm like, oh crap, the season's half over. I have to catch up. Um, and that's exactly what I did. And I thought the second season, while not quite meeting the highs of the first season for me, I thought the second season was still pretty sharp and really interesting to see all the different directions that the girls were going in. However, I do think that's part of the reason why it didn't reach the highs for me is that the scenes I like the most, and we say this a lot with shows with this many characters, are when they're all interacting together. You didn't get as much of that this season. But season two of Betty, Dave, are you up on it, down on it? Where are you at?
yeah, still liked it. You have to figure that we got less ensemble scenes because of COVID. Obviously, this was
Yeah.
a shot on location in New York City. This is not a show with sets. Um,
Mhm.
Very strenuous shoot, according to the showrunner, Kristen Moselle, by all accounts. So that explains a lot. You have to
Yeah.
figure, right? It's basically our main crew all doing their own disparate storylines for the most part. Obviously, there's other characters with them, but they're not as connected as much. And I have to imagine that's really just due to planning the production more than anything else. But I still think they did a lot of. I think there was a lot of interesting plots, and I was quite satisfied once again with the season. It's not as I think revelatory as season one because season one was just a really smart continuation of the original movie Skate Kitchen. So obviously the second season's not gonna pop the same way, but it continues in the same way, and also will probably feel like an interesting time capsule due to being a show that is acknowledging COVID's existence versus pretending it doesn't exist. Like everyone's wearing masks and there's little COVID plot points in the finale, right? So it's
Mhm.
a little different than a lot of other dramas.
Yeah. And I liked that. I think we mentioned this in the episode one review. Um, I liked that it was just kind of an aspect of the world that was accepted and not really like harped upon. Like season starts, COVID's already full swing. The effects of it are already being seen. We see Indigo quit a job because shopper won't wear a mask and things like that. So just kind of part of the world. And I didn't feel like it like derailed the season or really was even a major plot point until the very end, like you mentioned. Um, but you said that there was a lot of different storylines and character arcs. Which ones were you most interested in this season? Which ones worked best?
So in general, I thought it was nice that romances, whether they're going positively, negatively, they're barely going at all, they're going full steam. I like that everyone basically had something along those
Mhm.
lines, romance wise. I think that was cool in terms of enriching these characters into
Mhm.
our second season. Um, in terms of those romances, I think the stuff with Janae is probably my favorite out of that, but I did like all of it. I also really liked the stuff with Camille once again because she's
Mm.
probably the most connected to the skating culture themes of the show and from the movie, and in terms of shining a light on sexism in like skate media and social
Mhm.
media and influencing and all that stuff. Again, things always done really tactfully and genuinely, and I really liked how that arc went.
Yeah. I actually found the stuff with Honey Bear this season and her relationship and the openness of the relationship with
Right,
like the third party. I found it to be very hit or miss and actually a bit grating. And I think that was just the aspect of the lack of communication between them. I felt a little bit the same about Kurt with their relationship with Micah's girlfriend, or
right, yeah,
you know. Although I do have to say, it did set up for a very like devastating end for Kurt, which I thought really paid off well. Um, and the stuff with Indigo, being homeless, becoming a sugar baby, and
hmm
pulling Camille into that world briefly. How did you feel about the way that was portrayed in that plot?
Uh, it's just I always like seeing that portrayed in this mainstream culture, just because like as an acknowledgement. Obviously, we saw this recently with Shiva Baby, the independent film.
Mhm.
Um, I thought it was cool. Like the homelessness aspect is kind of like doesn't hit as much for me because Indigo is like a rich girl, right? She's got kicked
Mhm.
out of the house by her mom. Like it's not quite the same to me, you
Right.
know. But I thought they did a really good job with all the seeking arrangements, sugar baby stuff, because like there's an inherent tension and danger to that stuff, and doesn't fully manifest for a few episodes. So I thought that was
Mhm.
handled well.
Yeah, I thought that was handled well too, and it just kind of had this impending sense of doom around it. Like you knew something was going to go wrong or go bad with it. And I thought the way that it paid off with, that one guy showing up to the party at the end,
Mm.
and the issue she has with the other guy before, who, is trying to perform sexual acts on her, to pay her for that, was, I thought, really interesting. Going back to Kurt real quick, I thought her like harem of guys that she was like trying to educate on how to treat women was a really funny like running
Oh yeah.
aspect of the season, and I loved seeing that. And the way that the guys responded to her was so funny.
hmm
Talking about
Oh,
the male G spot, hilarious.
oh yeah. No, that was great. That was great.
Mhm.
Um, Culminating with all of them dressing up as her for at the Halloween party. Awesome.
Yep.
And that's the best stuff about Kurt. Like Kurt's like own personal journey with Micah's girlfriend kind of like meandered a little bit, right? Not quite as
Right.
interesting. And like the Kurt character is really aloof and vibey, right? And
Hmm.
I think when the plot is not as focused for that character, it's not as cool. But like having all the it's a nice way to bring all those secondary characters in the ensemble, all these male skaters, into a interesting way. And again, kind of bringing like the gender relations themes of the show back into the front. And yeah, I agree with you about the honey bear stuff. I found honey bear stuff in season one really really dull. So this was definitely a step up from that, but still,
Mm.
I think just the fact that she's like a reserved character kind of gets in the way of her plots. Like she just
Yeah.
can't help herself sometimes.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think Janae's relationship, will they, won't they? But more so Janae becoming the like activist leader,
Mm,
trying to like get everything, I thought was really interesting. And then obviously Camille has like the same storyline, trying to become a serious skater, wanting to be taken seriously, not, always being taken seriously by the people around her, and the label influence. Some of that hit, some of it didn't, but I think definitely with some nice payoff near the end. So Betty, I think, continues to just be a really delightful show to tune into for 30 minutes a week, and enjoy when it's on. So if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend tuning in. Dave, any last thoughts on Betty before we move on?
I mean, 2 seasons in, it's only a 6 hour commitment, so catch the f up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, something that's a little bit longer in form, but think also quite delightful was Loki, which wrapped up its first season,
Mm.
and we thought was going to be only season. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, just this past Wednesday on Disney Plus, Marvel just turning out that content, man. Just always turning it out. But this was actually Marvel content that I thought was pretty interesting. And we talked about that when we reviewed the first episode. Did this season hold your attention, Dave?
Yes, it did. I definitely liked Loki the most of our three MCU Disney Plus shows to date, and had a lot of hype going in because I was really taken with the original trailer. I thought the first episode did a really good job of setting up our world, our stakes, our lack of stakes, while still being incredibly expository. Like, I was impressed in the early goings how much exposition we're getting from Owen Wilson's Mobius, right? Explaining the TVA, explaining multiverses to the audience. I was surprised how riveting all that just straight info dumping was.
Hmm.
And I think the arc of the show is quite successful. I think there's one choice towards the end of the show that perhaps would make the season even stronger, but it still really lands at the end. And I think that's a stark contrast to WandaVision and Falcon, which had really muted and frustrating finales after stronger earlier stuff in the early going. So yeah, quite pleased with Loki and getting a season two. Definitely not something I expected, but obviously welcoming it.
With WandaVision earlier in the year, we started to see a little bit of the weirdness of the MCU, obviously doing the sitcom style. But beyond that, obviously the end of the season, you see Wanda becoming the Red Witch and all the possibilities that might open up. We know um, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is coming up. Obviously, Spider Man into the multiverse. So the multiverse is coming. That's like a certainty in the MCU at this point. And Loki seems to be like that first step towards really like introducing that and kind of leaning into the possibilities of that. And I think they actually did that pretty tactfully here, right? Because I think there's an aspect of that of the multiverse where things can become confusing if you don't explain it right, where you can kind of get lost. Um, and I think for the most part, the season was laid out and explained pretty well. I never felt lost in terms of the mechanics of things. I mean, obviously, do I understand how any of this could actually happen, like on the actual level of multiverses? I'm not smart enough for that stuff.
Mm.
I'll
That
grasp
thought
the
never
general
crosses
concept.
my mind. I
Right.
don't care about that.
You have to suspend that going in. But I think for the most part, the mechanics of the world that we're jumping into are pretty good. And I think what I really enjoyed and I found impressive about Loki was it did a lot of this ground laying for the future of the MCU, setting up the weirdness, setting up all these different possibilities, the different variants, so to speak, while also being a pretty introspective look at Loki as a character and allowing some real, I think, development in terms of who Loki is, understanding himself, coming to peace with certain aspects of himself. And I think they did that in really interesting ways. Obviously, pairing Hiddleston's Loki with Sophie DiMartino's Sylvie, a female variant of Loki, I thought was a really good choice and allowed a bit of romance with himself in the
Mm.
season, which I thought was
I
interesting.
mean, real romance in the MCU. There's not much
Yeah.
to speak of. They actually let it like really commit, which
Mhm.
which was so welcome. But I think something we talked about going in, and a huge criticism of mine of Falcon and Winter Soldier, was that Loki was actually allowed to be a season of television that worked on its own while also servicing the MCU and the obligations and the things that MCU plot mechanics required, right? Like, it did both. It wasn't just there for the MCU. Like, it actually works as a season of TV. And that's kind of my number one requirement with this kind of stuff. Because if it's just existing to connect our movies, then it actually doesn't really matter, right?
Mhm.
And like Loki going in, I was like, oh well, you know, I don't care that much because at least they're explaining that there won't be any stakes. So even if it doesn't feel consequential, I won't mind that much because it's going to be cool and it'll be playing in a sandbox of sorts. And that was still largely the case. And then they managed to drop a bomb on us and introduce villain of Phase 4, we have to assume. Did not see that coming.
Yeah. Um, I want to save that discussion for the
Hmm.
end, just real quick. Um,
Yeah.
Finishing the point about the Loki kind of coming face to face with himself, and I thought episode 5 where Loki runs into all the variants of Loki. There's classic Loki who's played by Richard E. Grant. I thought great casting in that sense. There's obviously the alligator. Everybody loves the alligator.
Hmm.
uh Fantastic. And then obviously there's like Kid Loki, there's boastful
President
Loki.
Loki. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different versions of himself and kind of all their different takes on the world. And um, I thought that was really fascinating and helped to bring out the best. And obviously, I think also the relationship between Hiddleston and Owen Wilson on screen, Owen Wilson playing Mobius, I thought was really fantastic because uh, I didn't know how Owen Wilson was going to fit into the MCU. I was kind of nervous because like, he can be just very Owen Wilsony, and that can overpower sometimes the movies that he's in. But I thought he was great and loved seeing their chemistry on screen. How'd you feel about his performance?
Wow. Wow. No, it was good. I think everyone was immediately taken with Mobius, right? And
Yeah.
totally effective. You know, when you see him come back in where was the place they went when they get pruned? What was it called? They
Oh
have a
God, I
name? The
can't
Void?
remember.
No, it had a
Yeah, it
name.
was
I forget.
something like it wasn't like purgatory, right? It
Yeah,
was
some and whatever. Who cares?
yeah,
But like when he comes back, like
yeah,
everyone's like all hyped. That's a fist pump moment, right? And I think that again speaks to how well the show actually works because our introduction to Mobius again is just him info dumping, right?
yeah,
So credit to Michael Waldron and everyone making the script, and credit to Owen Wilson's performance. It worked really well. Looking at the rest of the cast, in the early episodes, I was like, Gugu Mbatha not doing too much. This is not adding up. So I was kind of
mhm,
not surprised when Ravona had a much bigger role later on
yeah.
in the series. And I don't know about you, but did you see the Timekeeper's twist coming? Because I immediately was like, this is some Wizard of Oz esque shit. Like I saw right through that one.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
I did
totally.
not see that twist coming, but um, also when it happened, I wasn't like super shocked. I was like, oh, okay, like moving on to something bigger, badder. I think the Wizard of Oz thing is a good analogy for it. Even the storm that was hiding he who
Yes, right.
remains was a similar type thing. Um, and you alluded to it earlier, so let's talk about it now. Jonathan Majors shows up in the last episode and gets quite a bit of screen time as He Who Remains, which seems to be a variant of Kang the Conqueror.
Yep.
Uh, you know, Pretty big villain, I guess, like the new Thanos for this phase of the MCU. How did you feel about Major's performance? This,
Yeah. So like going in because we knew that Majors was officially cast as Kang will be appearing in Ant-Man 3. As soon as I saw him, I was like, there we go, right? Like I don't know if the average audience person is like watching that, they're not sure what's going on. And then he refers to himself as a conqueror later on, doesn't actually call himself Kang. But
Mhm.
uh I get the meta-ness of it all, you know what's going on. I loved it because he fucking vamped, bro. It was awesome. And like that's like a 10-second monologue scene, man. Like that is all Jonathan Majors. And I'm just so struck with he went from like uh breakthrough actor nomination at the fucking Indie Spirit Awards to being a Emmy nominated lead in Lovecraft Country and a primetime MCU villain in like a 2 year span. Like Jonathan Majors just fucking skyrocketed, man.
Yeah, he the energy he brought to He Who Remains, this version of Kang the Conqueror who's at the very end of time and seen everything, knows everything's going to happen. Seems a bit senile and losing his mind a little bit. I thought it was perfect, honestly, because I've seen some different analogies to the performance. I think the one that kind of stands out is it did kind of bring a little bit of like Heath Ledger Joker energy, where it's just kind of like you had no clue what was coming next. You had no clue what direction he's going to go. It felt like anything was possible in terms of that performance from 1 second to the next. And I think he actually played like the genuine surprise of not knowing the next thing really well. And um, man, I just was so pleased that we got so much of him because I had a hunch that they might have him like a mid credit scene, end credit scene, something like that, or maybe we see something alluded to him in terms of the timekeepers eventually. But no, we got a whole 35 minutes with him, and it was great. It actually made me really excited for this next phase now because if we're just gonna be getting Jonathan Majors playing different versions of Kang in all these different Marvel movies, like yeah, sign me up. I'm down. I'm
Fuck yeah,
down.
man. Yeah. And like I said, like that's a fact, a bit of subversion that they established a real character on the show
Mhm.
while not detracting from the show. Now, I think thematically, if that wasn't Kang there in the finale, and that was another Loki variant, I think you might have been able to make the season even tighter. But Kang being there was not only entertaining and effective, but it didn't hurt the season. Like it maybe didn't shouldn't have worked as well as it did, but it really did. So I also I loved episode 3, the Lamentus one. I would love
Mhm.
more of that stuff where they were, I think we're maybe a little past this now, but like uh the TVA stuff, just like going back in time and like doing like adventures. It's like a way to do like uh crime of the week stuff
Yep.
from a traditional procedural, but still being cool. Like
Mhm.
the production values that we know Disney can handle now with the VFX screens. Like it looked really good.
It did look really good, and I agree. I think there's a lot of potential for future shows, and maybe even future Loki episodes because it's coming back for season 2. A surprise announcement at the end of this 6th episode. How are you feeling about another season of Loki?
It'll be more. We will definitely get something like Lamentus, I think, again. So I'm down.
Hmm. Yeah.
Whether Kang is as omnipresent in that, I'm not so sure because he'll probably be shifting towards more movie and
Hmm.
more mainstream, obligations. But then again, they do end that season with focusing on the statue of Kang in the TVA. We're in a different situation here, and almost like a hard reset for our Loki character. So
Hmm.
I'm totally down. There's a lot of possibilities, and that's what's so fun about it is the way they can play with the stakes.
Absolutely. I'm pumped for it. More Hiddleston, I think, is always good. Keep going weird. Um, Waldron seems like he's got to be tapped to be a major part of this moving forward. I mean, obviously, um, we Kevin Feige is the overseer of all of Marvel, the executive producer on all of this stuff. But uh, near the end of the last phase, uh, we obviously had the Russo brothers running things. Do you think Waldron is being tapped for that kind of role?
Oh, no, I would say no. I don't know if we've had anything like that get presented just yet. Um, what was it? Was it Jack Schaefer who was involved with Black Widow, as well as WandaVision? I'm not sure who it was, but someone was involved in Black Widow in one of the shows. But I actually think this is a good launch. These shows are appearing to be good launching off points for the talents. Notably, Matt Shackman of WandaVision closed the deal to direct a new Star Trek movie for Paramount, and he was highly pursued for other projects as well. So Marvel will have to offer him something big, I think, to keep him in the MCU because
Mhm.
you get a lot of eyeballs, and there are only so many, Marvel directing chances. We just got the Blade director announcement as well today, so yeah. But Waldron, I think deserves a lot of kudos because that writers' room and him, like I think they exceed expectations.
I completely agree. It was Schaefer, by the way, who was involved with both. So, story for Black Widow, and I think he was the creator of WandaVision. So,
Right.
um, you have to tune into these Marvel TV shows because they have real consequences to the MCU at large. So tune in, you can leave us your thoughts, and why don't we move on to some big screen movies? And I guess this was a big screen movie on the little screen, Gunpowder Milkshake, dropping on Netflix this past week. Um, was this a movie you were anticipating at all?
It's not a movie I was anticipating. I just saw it on the calendar uh, earlier in the year. Shot in 2019, acquired by SDX, and then later sold by SDX to Netflix earlier in 2021. So another movie of product of pre quarantine that needed to get out. And wasn't anticipating it. Didn't really know much about it. But then you look at that cast and you just think about what kind of the premise, and it's like it's definitely appealing. So
Certainly.
I had that going in, definitely.
Yeah, I obviously not as tuned in as you are. I had no expectations to go into this movie, and I found it to be pretty fun, a little long, um, but some of the action set pieces are unique, not things we've seen in other, I think, action films before. It had a very Baby Driver
Mm,
type of feel to it to me a lot of the time. I mean, even I guess like this is Drive, but like the way she wears that, uh, like a bowling jacket zipped up all the way reminds me of Drive, and then the stylistic choices reminded me a little bit of Baby Driver. So
mhm.
there was some familiarity in the overall um, feeling to the movie.
Right.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. I wasn't super wowed by it, but I think it's pretty solid. Um, I was actually struck with the comparisons, like the world building reminded me a lot of John Wick 3. It's an
Ah,
action movie in a world of a hitmen and assassins and stuff. But like the fact that they have like these rules, that it's a oh you drop off your gun, right? The
hmm,
waitress takes it. You leave it at the desk when you go to the magic doctor for the hitman,
right.
right? It's like this reminds me of John Wick 3 with the coin. This reminds
That's
me of Hotel Artemis with
yep.
stuff like that. So I think that's becoming a bit of convention with movies that try and feature like visceral action but want
Hmm.
have franchise ambitions. Notably, this is a co-production with Studio Canal, CoPro in Europe. They announced recently that they are developing a sequel to this, which we would assume they would
Makes sense.
put out on Netflix again. And you can tell that because like there's kind of world aspirations, right? But even putting that to the side, action movie with Karen Gillan, Lena Headey, Angela Bassett, Michelle Yeoh. It's like, yeah, I would like to see that.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Like I said, I think Karen Gillan as Sam is a little bit wooden. I think that's intentional with the character's, um, you know, backstory being orphaned and put into this world of, being an assassin from a very young age, not having a lot of, support in her life beyond the kindness of some of the people in her life. But, um, I felt like the standout things to me were just I think about that action scene right where her like arms aren't working and how they like thought of that super creative and like all the aspects
Yeah.
that I thought were really fun. Then her arms still aren't working and she has to get out of the parking garage with the kid in her lap. I thought that was a great scene. And then the ending scene you mentioned at the library where all the women are fighting the male assassins together was just really fun. So, while I think this isn't a movie that's gonna be nominated for any awards. I guess maybe some technical ones, potentially. I don't think so, but
Mhm.
um, I think overall it was still a really just a fun,
Yeah.
pleasurable, turn your mind off watch.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know if I have like a whole that much, all that much to say. I like the ingenuity of the action. Like you said, I think the stuff when Karen Gillan can't use her arms is
Mhm.
it's really, really fun, quite convincing. Um, this doesn't have quite the like visceral R-rated like F you up shit like John Wick or Nobody earlier this year of Bob Odenkirk. It's not quite at that level, but again, it's in that vein. And I agree. Like I like Karen Gillan overall, but I actually think she's better when it's a little lighter, uh, like in Jumanji. It's still kind of
Yeah,
action stuff, but she's just I think a better performer that way. This is like her trying to be like Uma Thurman and Kill Bill, not as convincing. Like she can
yeah.
do the action of it all, but like the emotion of it is maybe not all the way there.
How did you feel about Angela Bassett? I just something about her performance I just found like very strange. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like her and Michelle Yeoh in particular, it's like they not someone two actors I would have expected to pop up in something like this.
Oh,
You know, given the
not at
status
all.
of their careers. Lena Headey, it's one of her first notable roles post Thrones, from what
Mhm.
I can remember. Um, but yeah, like Eo and Bassett, they're just kind of there. But I don't know. I kind of like the energy, like the stuff with the library, like in the early
Yeah.
going when they're like dressing down Karen Gillan, deciding if they're gonna kill her or not. Like I like that. That was fun.
Well, I wanted to ask you, in that library scene, they all use different weapons. Florence Michelle Yao has a chain that she's like whipping around, and
Yeah.
Angela Bassett's got the hammers. What would be your weapon? What would you want to use in that scenario?
Oh God, that's a good question.
I thought the chains
Um,
were pretty sick, honestly.
yeah, in video games when it's melee weapons, I always try and get something super up close. So I don't something boring like just a normal sword, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I
not
don't
a gold bar.
know.
That was a pretty fun
I
part
need
of
a
that
little
too.
range. I need to take advantage of my long arms.
That's true. Play to your strengths. I think overall, if you're on Netflix looking for something to watch, you can do a lot worse than
Yeah.
Gunpowder Milkshake. So
And
check
just
it
one
out.
last note. I really love the laughing gas stuff. Like
Yeah,
those guys just all high on laughing gas can't talk without laughing. It made me laugh. Like that shit was really funny.
yeah. It's a fun movie overall, and I didn't find Space Jam 2 to be less fun. Surprisingly, um, the Space Jam 2 has been something that's been rumored for a very long time, right? Like people thought maybe MJ would do another one, didn't
Mhm.
happen.
Blake
LeBron's
Griffin.
been, yeah, Blake Griffin. Jesus Christ.
Like early on, like Lob City Blake Griffin, when it was like when Blake Griffin's like, I like to do stand up and stuff. It's like, oh, Blake Griffin. He could
Yeah,
do the next Space Jam. It did make sense.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's kind of hard to go from Michael Jordan and LeBron James to Blake Griffin, but at that time, he was
Yeah.
kind of being tapped as like he could potentially get there. Obviously, some issues, but um, what were your expectations going into this?
I had no expectations, man, because here I'll
None.
just say it now. Space Jam 1 sucks.
I
So
mean,
Space Jam 2 also being bad doesn't bother me. I don't like Space Jam 1. I think it's fucking dog shit, honestly.
nothing about it. You don't like anything about it. You don't have
I have
like
no
nostalgic.
nostalgia for it as a kid. No, I
Wow.
watched it like once as a kid. I didn't really care for it at all. And I
Yeah.
like the Looney Tunes fine. Like I'd watch Looney Tunes if they happened to be on Cartoon Network or something. But like,
Sure.
yeah, like it just does it. I don't feel like it does the live action and animation stuff nearly as well as like something more lauded like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or something, from
Oh.
similar time.
I
But
mean,
like,
you're talking about one of the most well-respected animation movies of all time, Dave. I mean,
yeah. Well,
uh,
that's the thing. Like it I think what's the funnest stuff? Like it is seeing like people in the real world, but looking at it as an adult, it's like just craven,
yeah.
IP from the
Oh,
'90s because it was a continuation of like I believe it was a Gatorade commercial between MJ and the Looney Tunes, or
uh,
maybe not Gatorade, but something else. So the
something like
fact that
that.
Space Jam: A New Legacy, day and date theaters and HBO Max from Warner Brothers, is literally IP to the max. Like it's the most meta thing and presents itself as self-aware, but actually isn't that self-aware at all. Like it's like also like really like Craven brand everything. Like I was surprised to see it go that way. I don't know if anyone really thought that was what we were going to get until we saw that trailer and we're like, wait a minute. Is that the guys from A Clockwork Orange there in the background watching the game? The guys that murdered old people and raped girls. Like, is that them?
Yeah.
Because they're Warner Brothers IP in quotes, Kubrick movies being IP in the first place is kind of annoying. But like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so it's so like commercial. Everything about Space Jam, right? Like it's almost super specific. Like obviously there's mainstream movies and franchises and stuff, but like Space Jam, everything about it is commercial, and they somehow managed to take it up to 10 with this new one.
Y- Yeah, I mean, it couldn't be any more commercial. It's just really funny to like watch the basketball scenes and to see
Yeah.
all the characters in the background who are obviously just like people that came for a casting call and they put in a costume. You know, like they have Batman and Robin in the back of like half the scenes, and they don't look anything like the Adam West Batman or the I don't know who played Robin for the Adam West show, but um, yeah, it is extremely campy. I have a little bit more nostalgia for Space Jam One. I mean, at any time when I was in elementary school, we had that TV cart rolled in. We almost knew it was going to be Space Jam, and
Hmm.
a lot of good memories associated with that. But I agree, it's not a great movie, but it's a relic. You know, I think it's just a part of that time. It's very '90s. You know, you look at the basketball players who are in Space Jam One. You always say Michael
Hmm.
Jordan, but then what Muggsy Bogue and Charles Barkley.
Yeah,
Who else is in
Ewing, Larry
Ewing?
Johnson, is it Sean Kemp? I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sean Kemp. That's
yeah,
who
it's
it
all
is.
'90s players, obviously.
Yeah, just really funny. And then you get this one. I only knew four of the five because you have what Dame, AD, Clay, and Sue Bird. But was that Candace Parker as the other?
No, that wasn't Sue Bird. That was Diana Taurasi, and
Dan
then that
Rossi,
was
right?
Nieka Onkwumiki. I'm gonna say her name.
Gotcha.
One of the best players in WNBA, alongside Taurasi, who's arguably the
The
greatest female
greatest of all
player.
time, yeah.
Yeah,
And my apologies to Diana Taurasi, getting her confused with Sue
they
Bird.
they
Also,
kind
a
of rock
really good
similar
player,
haircuts when they play. I get it.
and also they were both UConn of like a earlier time. So those early UConn teams,
Right.
goddamn force. But um, I thought this was better than I expected it to be. In all honesty, uh, I went in expecting this to be absolute trash, and while I don't think it's good. I still think it's enjoyable. It's a fun kids movie. Um, so I'm gonna say this surpassed my very low expectations.
Hmm.
How about for you?
Yeah, it's like watching it. Like there's so much setup for the
Oh yeah,
movie, right? Like the first hour is like all like table setting somehow. But again, it's like table setting in the Warner Brothers lot. Like it's so
yeah,
weird. And then like it's all the animation too. Like you have like, normal like modern like CG 2D animation for the Looney Tunes. And LeBron gets it digitized and all that. But then like we go to the game and like the Looney Tunes are like different stop animation. They almost look. It's not claymation, but they kind of look more like clay model
mm,
to me. Like I'm not really sure exactly what that was, but definitely noticeable. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like there was fun moments. Like because it's so commercial, you can't help but notice a lot of the meta stuff. Like when Bugs Bunny's like explaining the premise of the movie, and he's like, that sounds familiar," because
yeah.
he's just Space Jam all over again. Thought that was really good. And
Lola even
also,
says we've done this before.
yeah,
Like,
and then it's like, was it Don Cheadle, our villain, Algae Rhythm, which is a funny name.
oh my god,
Uh, he was talking about, oh, LeBron like leaving. That's his mo. He left Cleveland. He
yeah,
left Miami, left Cleveland again. Watch out, Lakers. And I was like, that's actually really funny to see like the self awareness coming from LeBron. Someone who's very famous for being so aware of his image since he was like 15 years old because he had no
mm.
choice. So I appreciated seeing that.
Yeah. I appreciate seeing that too. And I actually thought some of the Looney Tunes stuff was pretty funny. When Daffy Duck says your son plays for the other team, and just like that screen grab going around now, like I don't know if you follow. Is it Craig? Uh, the is it Craig Smith who's the music critic? Um, I don't
I
know.
don't
Sometimes
follow him now.
oh no, well I forgot who it was, but sometimes he the person I follow tweets LGBTQI stuff, and that is just like going around LGBTQ Twitter, like people saying
That's
your
funny.
son plays for the other team. I thought that was hilarious, and just some of the Looney Tunes stuff I just thought really worked for me.
Yeah.
And I
Daffy was
for
funny.
Daffy is always funny, man. Like, yeah, I love him. Um, I, yeah, I thought it was fine. I thought the scene where they kind of find all the Looney Tunes who went out and were into the different worlds, and they have just a very blatant like uh recat like I don't know replica shot of the Amazonian games from Wonder Woman with
Mhm.
Lola. I thought that was a little superfluous. It just
Mad
felt like a
Max
lot.
Fury Road of all movies, like it's like
So
it's so
well,
weird, man, because it's so
well,
how IP driven it is.
yeah, well, and then they had Casablanca. Like how many? Like it's a kid movie, but it's
Yeah,
like you have Casablanca as one of them. Just a side note for
even
that.
The Matrix. A lot of kids probably
Oh
haven't seen
yeah.
The Matrix.
Although I really did like. It was that the little rat. Who is that? I forgot who.
While oh, what's his name? The
Is it Pepe
guy
Le Pew? That's not. No. This is like blasphemy right now, not knowing this.
Wile E. Coyote.
The little Mexican rodent who is with the
Yeah, I forgot his
grandma in the
name.
Matrix. But
Yeah.
him doing the Neo stuff, I really enjoyed actually. But yeah, then you have Rick and Morty. How many kids are watching
Hmm.
that? I don't know. But just a quick side note: Wonder Woman, voiced by Rosario Dawson
Yeah.
in this. What? So many random people. I thought it was fine. What did you think of the basketball stuff?
Uh, it's all right. It's fun. You know,
Yeah,
I guess the original Space Jam basketball stuff's a little more iconic.
yeah.
Just do the nostalgia of it all. But
I thought the Dame stuff was really strange.
yeah, kind of a weird mix of players to have in this. Like you got Clay, Dame, AD. Obviously, we know why AD's there, but like I don't know. Like I guess I don't know. Like I don't have like suggestions for like how to do Space Jam, especially because this one again, it's like so meta. You know, it's like in your
Mhm.
face. The serververse. You know, I was like, oh
Yeah,
Jesus, it's like well, we thought Ready Player One was bad. Just you wait.
yeah. Quick side note: Speedy Gonzalez is the
There we
little,
go.
uh, yeah. What was he? A rodent or
He's a mouse,
uh,
maybe.
mouse? Yeah. Also voiced by Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy. So it's pretty cool.
I actually
Um,
liked when LeBron when trying to get the team together, LeBron and Bugs, and like LeBron's like, oh yeah, we need Superman and King Kong. He'd be great on the boards, and like naming all
yeah.
these WB IP characters that obviously won't be in the movie for the
Mhm.
actual basketball stuff. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too. Um, yeah. Overall, Space Jam, it's fine. Any other thoughts on it?
You know, LeBron. I mean, like, LeBron's acting like almost entirely on screens, so I don't blame him because he's not a real actor. But like LeBron, he was a better actor in Trainwreck, playing a fictional
Way
version of
better.
himself. I'll say that. Then again, like these settings don't do non-actors any favors. We know that as well. But
He was
yeah, I thought LeBron would be
completely.
a little better. Like he was definitely like, I'm reading my lines, you know.
Yeah, he made Karen Gillan look totally like I don't know, Emmy or an award-winning actor, Oscar-winning actor.
Yeah.
He was very stoic, but it's a kids movie. I think kids will enjoy it. It's it's fine. You know, yeah. It's hard for me to like really critique a movie that's like so blatantly for kids and so blatantly just supposed to like pump WB as a product. So I don't know. It's fine. The Space Jam exceeded my very low expectations. If you have HBO Max, check it out. But why don't we wrap up there, Dave? What do we got for next week?
GI Joe back again, baby. Snake Eyes. Henry Golding, obviously seen that. We also have M Night Shyamalan's return with Old, and the return of Ted Lasso season 2,
Yeah,
Apple TV Plus, and also looking forward to the UK rapper Dave's second album coming out this Friday. So we got some stuff.
tune in at Nostalgia Pod on Twitter, SoundCloud.com/Nostalgia Pod, and YouTube.com/Nostalgia Pod. We'll be talking about Donda as well. Peace out.